and gentlemen, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started with this morning's presentation. For those of you who may not be aware, my name is Iram Martinez. I serve as the assistant to the president for social equity and diversity at Millersville University of Pennsylvania. And I am one of several. I would like to take this opportunity to just quickly thank the team that brought us here together this morning. Pam Smith, Pedro Rivera, and of course, Carlos Graupera. Personally, few things are more important to the future of Lancaster County as the educational success of our young students. And personally, the school dropout issue is a very important issue because I have a sibling who dropped out of high school in the 12th grade with 3 months to go in his senior year. And I look back on my personal life now and kind of where he's gone, and our trajectories in life have gone in very different directions. And so I've seen firsthand the impact that college dropout and the issues that high school dropouts deal with. And so we've got a very ambitious agenda. We want to be mindful of your schedule, and so I'm going to keep my comments brief. In a few moments, we're going to be having Mr. Pedro Rivera, the superintendent of the School District of Lancaster, who's going to be going over a few slides and a short presentation, and then we want to be able to disperse into different sections of the Ware Center. We've got about 4 different rooms available, and shortly after Pedro will make remarks, Pam Smith will approach the podium to try to get a sense of maybe perhaps where folks want to merge later on in the program. But without further ado, if I could please just have your attention, if you could just join me in welcoming Superintendent of the School District of Lancaster, Pedro Rivera.
I had to take the microphone off the podium. I've been going home every night this week to my wife and son watching The Voice, and I'm feeling inspired. First, let's start off with a good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. So I'd like to first take a quick moment and thank our partners, SACA and Carlos, who really championed this and helped pull this together, really facilitate this process. Let's give them a big round of applause. And in true typical Carlos fashion, this started with a 5-minute conversation around I have an idea or a thought to a full-blown breakfast with bacon and eggs and everything. So great job, and thank you for pulling it together. And of course, our partners, Millersville University, for hosting us today. This venue continues to be such an incredible place to meet and just congregate. So let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you, Millersville. So our goal for today is to be brief, to share information, and get everyone into a room to really talk about and discuss next steps around how to support children, how to improve the graduation rate, how to decrease our dropout rate. So I'm going to just take a few minutes to set the stage with some facts and some figures that will help just kind of generate, thought and provoke ideas as you're processing at your tables. Hopefully everyone can see the screen up here. But first, of course, I love this slide. This is a slide that we like to begin and end with, because at the end of the day, this is all about graduation, right? This is all about improving the life of kids, ensuring that kids are better the day they leave us than they were the day they started. And just as importantly, we start discussing and thinking about graduation the moment students walk into our K-3 classrooms. Graduation isn't a 12th grade thing, 11th grade thing, 10th grade thing. This is a 3- and 4-year-old goal. We educate all students from the moment they walk through our doors. We love to say from the moment they come out of the womb, to educate them to become successful as lifelong learners and become successful graduates. The School District of Lancaster actually identified this as priority number 1, improving the graduation rate and decreasing the dropout rate. We focused on 4 priority areas, the first of which being this, the next 2 around improving the reading and literacy rates around elementary and secondary, and lastly, building capacity across the district. This is an important movement for us, and we want to engage as many partners as we can. This slide's a bit small. I'll have to apologize, but this kind of shares the economic factors of a dropout or a non-graduate. Because interestingly enough, whenever you hear about remediation or support of kids, the first thing that comes to mind or pops into the heads of those who just kind of don't get it is how much is this going to cost me, right? So how much is this going to cost me? I mean, this last election was a great example of that. It's all about cutting resources. I mean, even Big Bird was going to be looking for a job over the next few months, but it's also important to take a look at the economic impact of education and the fact that this is not a cost, it's an investment. Because every dollar we spend on graduating a student is a dollar we save on providing remediation and support for kids accordingly. And if you look at the graph just quickly down on the bottom, it's interesting to note that 2009 is the last year we can find some of this demographic data. I'm sure everything kind of turned up on its head after that fact. So we wanted to share, just when you look at that top line, the unemployment rates for non-graduates. Down on the bottom, the unemployment rate for folks who had a graduate degree or higher. So you can kind of just see the trajectory of that and how important it is to educate and graduate students. And again, in Pennsylvania, we like to share this slide just to discuss the effects of non-graduates on the community. Again, not a cost, but an investment. Each non-graduate is estimated to impose a lifetime cost of $32,000, where a high school graduate increases the quality of life by $273,000 over their lifetime. So when you think about the non-cash value of a graduate versus a non-graduate, so 4 out of 10 PA non-graduates receive one or more non-cash transfer payment compared to 27% of high school grads, 10% of bachelor degrees, and 8.6% of master degrees or higher. So when you think about it, non-graduates are 15 times more likely to receive non-cash transfers, Medicaid, food stamps, government support, as we look forward towards who it is we invest in. And again, I always like to mention that last, over 2/3 of the nation's inmates did not earn a high school diploma. And when you think of public education, you think of the state of education in Pennsylvania alone, the cost of incarceration for an inmate is around over $36,000. Actually approaching $40,000 a year, and the cost to educate a child is anywhere between $9,000 and $12,000, depending on their need. So we really started to embark on creating this profile of a school district of Lancaster dropout. And we really wanted to know who it is we were serving, who it is we were identifying, who needed our services the most. And this was really a wake-up call for us. I mean, we realized traditionally you kind of have this idea or ideal of who a dropout is. You have this, you've kind of identified a student, and there may be someone you've seen somewhere throughout the community, someone you may be able to identify in a movie. We learned a lot when looking and creating this profile. First, we realized, we started to ask ourselves, were transitions a big part of who's dropping out of school? Were we looking at students who just couldn't conform to the many changes? We first started, of course, we assumed that transiency was a big issue. We found it wasn't. We noticed that most of our dropouts, over 60% of our dropouts, were with the district 8 to 12 years. So transiency was not a dilemma. We thought again, well, maybe these are behavior problems. Maybe these are students who, were always in the dean's office or suspended or, were kept out of school for behavioral issues. Again, not true. A majority of our dropouts had less than 2 suspensions throughout the course of their middle school career. So these weren't behavior problems. We then went on to learn through conversation and through, interview that the students who tend to have the most behavior problems were given the most attention. And these are students who made sure were coming to school day to day, especially connecting with parents and their advocates as well. So we realized these were students who weren't normally in trouble. We noticed that a good percentage of them failed gym. We know, even when you take a look at high school accreditation, 4% in terms of students who failed PE in other classes and students who only failed PE, 96% failed in 9th grade PE in another course, in 10th grade 92, in 11th grade 87, and in their senior year, 84% of our dropouts failed PE in another course, and 16% of our dropouts their senior year only failed PE, only failed gym. Interesting phenomenon. So we realized and we started to really think about the social implications of such. Is it a matter of when you ask the students, they don't want to get sweaty? They don't want to change their clothes. There's some social issues and implications around taking a physical education course. So you then ask yourself the question, so what are we going to do? Middle school academic performance. We realize we can identify as early as middle school and even before who our pre-dropouts were. We understood and we identified these are kids who are good kids, kind of quiet, sitting in the back of the room, who had kind of pushed along and towed the line right up to the point of middle school. They then started receiving grades, individual grades for each subject area, and started to slip behind. 91% of our students who showed difficulty in middle school, or excuse me, 91% of the dropouts started showing difficulty in their middle years classes. And then we looked at absence. Those students who were chronically absent had a greater likelihood of being a high school dropout or being a dropout before graduation. Now this kind of, when you think about, well, of course, but what you don't understand is we realize as early as kindergarten in some cases, kindergarten, first grade, some of the students started to exhibit more than 10 days absence throughout the course of the year. And then we started to make some connections and said, you know, in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, those aren't necessarily student issues, those are family issues. It's about a value of education and how we start to instill that value within the home unit, within the parental unit, within the family unit. So we really started to notice the need to connect with students earlier on, to connect with families and connect services early on. If you look at the chart and you look at that large gray area, 72%, 20 or more days absent. 20 or more days absent, the greatest indicator of a future dropout. And again, when we looked at our additional findings, 2/3 of students who dropped out were males. So no misnomer that majority of females dropped out. It was around 50-50. 2/3 males. The percentage of ESL students and students with IEPs who dropped out was roughly commensurate with overall district numbers. So these weren't ELL and IEP students. They weren't students with special needs. The numbers were very, very equal. And then records indicated that 25% of students who dropped out had been in an alternative program or setting where they were put back into general education classes at some point in their education without a smooth transition. Again, those transitions are important, connecting with kids and providing proper support. So we realized the general profile of an SDOL dropout: 66% male, 63% attending school in SDOL for more than 8 years, 91% struggling academically, 72% demonstrating very poor patterns of attendance, and 79% not exhibiting significant behavior problems at school. Some interesting facts when we started to look at it. We realized we had to start connecting with quieter students, looking for the students who sit in the back of the room and are not necessarily engaged, starting to connect around those attendance patterns earlier than middle school. And by really identifying who it is we were serving and really putting supports in place, which is why everyone is here, and continuing to grow that effort, we looked at our trend lines over the past few years. When we started together in 2006, 2007, we identified around a little over 450 dropouts. And as you look at the numbers over the course of 5 years, over the course of a number of years, from 2006 to 2011-12, although these numbers are not published yet, but I think these were our final numbers, we're down to 141 dropouts. And a lot of that is by connecting with students, going to the homes, connecting students to services, connecting students to families. But at the end of the day, if our job is to educate each and every student and ensure that our students are better the day they leave us than they were the day they started, even that 141 number is far too high. So we come together today to share some real specifics and to kind of share what's happening with our partners throughout the community, to share what is being championed by SACA and what is being supported by Millersville and our other partners, and really getting engaged in moving this work forward and continue to champion this work. I also want to share with you, as we kind of, I shared throughout the course of my first few slides, there were many eye-opening factors. We learned a lot when we went through this profile and creating this profile. And I think there continues to be a lot to learn about students, and I kind of love this slide that I shared a few times. But remember, today's kids may never experience inserting a VHS tape into a VCR to watch a movie or recording something. Today's kids don't remember when the number of TV channels being single digit. Today's kids, rotary dial television with no remote control, they don't know what that even looks like. Today's children watch TV when they don't know, they've never experienced watching TV when the network says you should. They either TiVo or on-demand everything nowadays. Today's children have never experienced that there was a time before reality TV. Today's children never experienced blowing the dust out of an NES cartridge in hopes that it'll load this time. Those gamers know that one. Most of the guys are probably laughing about that. Today's kids may never experience a payphone, or for that matter, a pager, or for that matter, a flip cell phone now, you know? Or for that matter, in some cases, large desktop computers. Today's kids will never experience having to remember someone's phone number, push 1 or scroll down, right? Today's kid may never experience Legos just being blocks of various sizes. Now they come with wheels and windows and doors and little guys and spears and Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and whoever else Lego can create to make a couple extra bucks. And of course, today's kids may never have to experience manually unlocking a car door. Now they push a button, the door opens for them. And my favorite, today's kids may never experience when Spam was a meat product. So remember, when serving today's kids, when engaging in conversation today with, around who it is that we're serving, remember what it is that today's kids do experience. And remember what it is that today's kids do need. And with that, I invite Pam Smith to share some logistics for us as we engage in today's dialogue.
Okay, so for the engagement part of our morning, we're going to allow the group to break up into 5 sections to discuss what potential role you feel you can play in supporting improving the graduation rate for the community. So on the back of one of the handouts that you should have gotten, there are descriptions. There are 5 groups: mentoring, business partnerships, skilled apprenticeships / internships, extended academic opportunities, and youth development / programming. So we'd like you just to take a moment to read through the description and see where you feel you fit best in this work. So it's the piece that resonates with you the quickest and the most in terms of where your passion is, your role in the community, and where you think you might be able to fit in coming together to support increasing the graduation rate for our community. So I'd like you just to take a moment to look at that, and then I'm going to do a quick assessment of where folks think they would like to go so that I can break you up into groups depending on size.
Raise off is providing opportunities, and for my world, one of my roles again is overseeing the career and tech programs, is starting to begin promoting the fact that our high school here in the city, we have programs that prepare the workforce. You speak to early childhood education and you spoke to administrative assisting duties. We have both those programs. We have state-approved training programs. And I think beginning to make that connection, and many people are not aware that our high school has a state-approved training program equivalent to our partners in the Lancaster County CTC, where many of our businesses go to for a workforce, as a source of a workforce. We have these same programs on campus that we are offering. And we have a healthy enrollment. We have students who are looking for those experiences. We are looking for those experiences. So when you said administrative assisting duties and in the early childhood realm, you and I will definitely be talking after today, because we have students who are seniors in their upper level programs who are dying in the spring to go out on what we call a cooperative educational experience that we can put in their training to use.
Sometimes they feel a stigma if people know that your parent has gone to prison. So they're less likely to sometimes to get involved and participate in activities. They feel ostracized. They have a very traumatic, something traumatic has happened to them. So it's difficult for them to concentrate academically. So what we are looking at, other organizations like Amachi, and I know Melanie's with the Reentry Management Organization, is actually helping those kids and providing mentors for them, and to say that they will be able to succeed.
So we're thinking of creating a program that centers around the arts, offering programs with several school districts. We're now talking to various schools and saying, are you interested? What do you think this should look like? But students could take some of their classes at Millersville. There are already existing collaborations with a variety of school districts where there are online opportunities for students to take some of those classes. So really thinking big, like how can we get do things differently than we've been doing them, taking advantage of technology on the one hand, on the other hand, lots of face-to-face, having students on our campus working with other students who can kind of show them the way and help them have that vision long-term for how will this connect me to a bright future, and making them love to be engaged in education.
And in terms of existing programs, one of the programs we have right now is family literacy. And we're at Carroll B. Winters, as well as Washington Elementary School, where we are providing educational services for the parents of children, because as you talked about this morning, if we can get parents more engaged, the children are going to be more successful as well. So we are providing both GED and ESL classes for parents, and then so they're getting the academics, but we're also teaching them parenting skills as well as how to teach their children to be successful in school. And all the research shows that if you can get the parents involved, the children are going to be more successful as well.
Absolutely.
I do see that Big Brothers Big Sisters needs to play a bigger role in the community. I'm 2 years into this organization, and what I have learned is that we haven't been a team player, so I'm sorry. But we're perfectly willing to do that, and know that there are lots of places where we can plug in and assist and, you know, use the resources probably that you guys bring to the table that we have failed to garner. As far as getting out there into the community, we really need to do a better job because our program works, and it's just unfortunate how limited we have been.
If they're being mentored, or they have someone in there that wants to change them to how they think, instead of working with them how the kid thinks. And that's, you know, that's where you start building the bond with that child. That relationship building is so important, because if that mentor person does not try to work with that kid's culture or that structural environment and tries to change it completely, you actually end up losing the child, because then he doesn't want to be part of it.
And I just want to encourage, one of the things that we want to do here today is we don't want to come together necessarily to hear, though we do want to hear the school districts say, this is what we believe is the solution. How can you help us? We want them to hear us, and we say, we know you have a program, but this is what we believe, and this is how we can contribute to these efforts, so that we may conclude some things that they may not want to hear. But I mean, to solve problems, you got to storm before you form.
So if we don't get them ready, businesses are going to be paying for it. You know, if they are not ready for the work of the 21st century, then our industry will eventually leave to Kentucky or to Arizona, because we are not developing the human potential that we must develop here in Lancaster. At the end of the day, when they graduate, that they will have a choice, but if that choice is higher ed, that they will be ready for it. You know, because many times we stop them from even, you know, dreaming about higher education by the education that we are providing them.
For perspective, we've made it a strategic priority within what we're looking at doing, and so we have 4 focus areas that came out of a year's kind of worth of work and different group segments and work groups and all of that. They're focused around advocacy messaging. I'm going to lose all of them right now. Advocacy messaging, increasing communication between business people and then educators at different levels. So from the CEO level to the teacher and management to the curriculum directors, having those connections.
I know there was some excellent, authentic dialogue happening in all the breakout rooms. It's okay. All right, so we're going to just capture one highlight from each of the 3 questions that the groups should have been addressing in your engaging discussion. So the first question was, how do you see yourself helping kids related to improving the graduation rate? Do I have one of the groups that wants to report out just one answer that you got from that? Or I'll have to voluntold someone. Okay. Melanie, can I have you answer that one for the business apprenticeship group?
We actually did not have any business representatives in our group, but all of the nonprofit agencies that were there came to the realization that, number one, we need to partner with the school district of Lancaster, understand a bit more about the skills that their students have, and that certainly the nonprofit agencies can offer internships and apprenticeships for students as well.
Great, thank you for that. All right, so the, let's see what group we have next. The mentoring group. Pastor Hernandez, do you have someone that could report out on the second question? If you were to do this, what would you expect to see as a return on investment? Did you have any discussion about that?
There was a lot said. We had a very caring group. But they talked about better partnerships in order to work together and utilize the resources that are out there. We needed to develop systems that disseminated information so that we can better partner and through that support the school district in mentoring, specifically in mentoring.
Great, thank you.
And one other thing that was said that I thought was a great return on investment was that if the 141 kids that were dropouts, if that number could be eliminated, everyone would think that that was a great return on investment.
So getting those 141 students to graduate. All right, great. And the last question was, how does this align with your current priorities, and what resources or opportunities can you commit to this endeavor? And I'd like to go to the academic group, the one that Pedro was running, for an answer to that. Pedro, do you have one highlight maybe you can extract from that discussion?
We had a reporter. The reporter left. Oh, man. All right, now I have to dig really deep. I guess first, in terms of, was this the?
So how does this align with your current priorities, and what resources or opportunities can you commit to the folks that were in your room?
And actually, 2 or 3 really good ideas came out of that connection. First, I'll kind of share with you one of the areas that the folks, of course, like to invest first is time, I think, which is the biggest, factor in the time to really engage in meaningful work. Secondly, we really like the idea of not creating anything new, but they thought it would be even a better idea to take those resources, and this is probably going to be one more project for us, so here's a highlight for what we're going to talk about later. However, creating almost like a social network in a sense with all the email addresses so that folks can keep each other updated and engaged around the work that's going on to better support what's happening. So I think one of the deliverables that they like to see first is a social network created, and then they're going to invest in putting the information needed to keep it updated and keep that dialogue going on.
Okay, so excellent discussion that's come out of that. And I think we do have some existing structures that might be able to take on some of the things that have come up in conversation just based on the snippets that I heard. So in terms of next steps, there's a couple of things that I want to put back to you that we will agree to do. One is to create some kind of place where you can have access to that information. So I think similar to what Pedro just said. So access to the folks that were here and that are committed, and then also a way that we can maybe get some of that marketing in place. I think we have some existing structures that could do that. There were a couple of requests for the PowerPoint, or at least the information that was contained in there. So as long as you've signed in and we have your email address, we will make sure that you have access to that information. And third, I think that SACA, again, I would like to just give them a round of applause for helping to round us up today. And I think that based on the information that was gathered in the focus groups, we'll also be getting back to you sort of some common themes that came out of that, which would most likely contain next steps. Carlos is adamant that this was not a one-time meeting. I think that definitely this kind of whet the appetite for folks, and that we've got some work to do, and folks that are willing to do the work. So I think that SACA has, a great commitment to making sure that we move this forward, and we're all going to be champions in doing that. So in the essence of time, I just want to say thanks again for your partnership and for attending this morning, and we'll make sure that we get out the next steps so that this isn't isolated, and hope that everyone has a great day.